Not all heroes wear capes. Some wear worn jeans, drive a Ferrari, and stop at a dusty auto shop run by a 65-year-old man named Henry. When Keanu Reeves' luxury car gave out on a quiet road outside Los Angeles, he never imagined that one simple act of kindness would lead to one of the most heartfelt gifts of his life. The sun was dipping behind the low hills outside the city, casting long shadows over the cracked pavement. Keanu Reeves was behind the wheel of his cherry-red Ferrari, cruising along the outskirts of Los Angeles after a shoot. The hum of the engine, usually smooth and musical, sputtered like a wounded animal. Then it coughed, wheezed, and died altogether. He coasted to a stop near a rundown auto garage, the kind most people drive past without a second glance. The signage was old and faded, the garage door propped open by a rusted chain. Inside, a single figure moved beneath the dim flicker of fluorescent lights, an older man, his hands buried in grease, working quietly on a decades-old Ford. Keanu stepped out, casually dressed in his usual black-on-black, jeans, jacket, and that effortless air of humility. He didn't flash a name or expect recognition. "Evening," he said, with a gentle nod. "Think you could take a look?" Before we continue, subscribe to the channel and like the video so you don't miss tomorrow's video. The mechanic glanced up, squinting slightly. "Too much car for this old shop," he grunted, but walked over anyway. His name was Henry Carter, 65 years old. A man built by engines and time. His hands told stories in scars and calluses. "A car's a car, right?" Keanu offered with a soft chuckle. Henry smirked. "A motor's a motor." He didn't know who he was talking to, and Keanu didn't correct him. Without another word, Henry grabbed his tools and opened the Ferrari's hood. Keanu stood beside him, curious but respectful. The two worked in silence, Henry diagnosing the issue, Keanu watching the master at work. It wasn't long before Henry's hand paused at his chest. Just for a second. A subtle wince. But then he pushed through. "Just need a few minutes," Henry muttered, brushing it off like old men do with every ache. But what neither of them knew then was that this wasn't just a pit stop. It was the beginning of something extraordinary. The Ferrari rumbled back to life under Henry's care, the engine now purring like a contented lion. Keanu gave an approving nod, visibly impressed. "That's incredible," he said sincerely. "You've got magic in those hands." Henry just shrugged. "Ain't magic. Just 50 years of busted knuckles and stubborn bolts." As Keanu reached for his wallet, Henry waved him off. "Nah, don't worry about it. You were stuck. I helped." "No big deal." Keanu paused, taken aback. Not many people would turn down a chance to charge a Hollywood star. But Henry didn't know or didn't care who he was. That honesty, that humility, stuck with Keanu like the smell of motor oil on cotton. Before leaving, Keanu asked, "What's your name?" "Henry. Henry Carter." Keanu smiled. "Thank you, Henry. I owe you one." Henry nodded without looking up, already cleaning his tools. The drive home was quiet, but Keanu's mind was noisy. He kept seeing Henry's shop, how dimly lit it was, how worn the tools were, how his hands trembled just slightly when no one was supposed to be watching. And those eyes. There was something in them. A mix of pain, resilience, and pride. The kind of look Keanu knew all too well. It reminded him of his own grandfather, who taught him to fix a motorcycle when he was 15. A man who barely spoke, but said everything through hard work and grease-stained silence. A week passed. Keanu kept thinking about Henry's shop. Most people would have driven off and never looked back, but Keanu wasn't most people. He loaded a small gift into the passenger seat, a box of high-end tools wrapped in brown paper, tied with string. No logos. Nothing flashy. Just something useful. Something real. When he pulled up to the shop, the sun was setting, same as before, but something felt wrong. The garage door was closed. The open sign wasn't lit. The windows were dark. Keanu stepped out, walked to the door, and knocked. No answer. He peered inside. Dust. Silence. A single light flickered deep in the back, but no movement. He knocked again. Nothing. Concern crept in like cold air under a door. He walked around to the side of the building and spotted an old neighbor sitting on a porch across the lot. A man in his 70s with binoculars and a plastic cup of iced tea. "Hey," Keanu called gently. "You know what happened to Henry?" The man lowered his cup. "You a customer?" Keanu nodded. "Yeah. He fixed my car last week." The man sighed. "Took himself to the hospital 2 nights ago. Chest pains, I think. Ambulance came around midnight. Said he was fine, stubborn as hell, but he shook his head. He hasn't come back." Keanu stood frozen. "Chest pains. Midnight. Alone. He didn't hesitate. Back in his Ferrari, he searched every nearby hospital. Within 30 minutes, he found him. Room 412. County General. Cardiac Unit. Keanu walked into that room, not as a movie star, but as a man who couldn't forget the look in another man's eyes. Henry blinked in surprise. You again? Keanu smiled softly. Told you I owed you one. Henry chuckled, but winced from the effort. Yes, I finally took a break. Huh? Keanu pulled a chair up beside him. You didn't just fix my car, he said. You reminded me what real work looks like. Henry looked at Keanu like he was trying to solve a puzzle. You're not just some guy with car trouble, are you? Keanu gave a sheepish shrug. You could say that. Henry narrowed his eyes. Wait a minute. My granddaughter was showing me a movie on her phone the other day. That was you, wasn't it? The motorcycle one? John Wick. Yeah, Keanu replied, grinning. Henry let out a dry laugh, followed by a small cough. Well, I'll be damned. I chewed out John Wick for driving a Ferrari into my shop like a rookie. Keanu chuckled, leaning back in the chair. And I still think you were right. Silence settled over them, not awkward, just peaceful. The kind that only comes when two people understand each other without saying much. Keanu looked around the hospital room. The wallpaper was peeling near the corner. A tired bouquet sat on a side table. No family photos. No visitors. Anyone checking in on you? Keanu asked gently. Henry shrugged. Got a son in Oregon. We don't talk much. And my granddaughter visits when she can, but she's got her own life. The shop's all I really had. Keanu was quiet for a moment, then asked, What happens to it now? Henry sighed. I don't know. Rent's overdue. If I can't get back soon, I'll probably lose it. Keanu leaned forward, his voice calm but firm. You're not going to lose it. Henry raised a brow. And how do you figure that? Keanu smiled. Because you've spent your life fixing things. It's time someone fixed something for you. Before Henry could argue, Keanu continued. I'm going to take care of the garage. The rent, the bills, whatever it takes. And when you're ready to get back to it, it'll be waiting. Clean. Stocked. Yours. Henry stared at him, jaw slack. Why would you do that? Keanu met his eyes. Because you helped me like I was just some guy. And maybe the world needs more places like that. More people like you. For the first time in years, Henry Carter didn't know what to say. It was nearly midnight when Keanu stepped back into his home. The city lights twinkled through his living room windows, but his mind was still back in that hospital room. He walked to his desk, pulled out a notepad, and began sketching. Not a script or a storyboard, but the layout of a garage. Henry's garage. Only better. He called his assistant the next morning. I need a property team, a renovation crew, and I want everything to stay under wraps. No press. No names. Got it, she replied, used to Keanu's unique blend of mystery and generosity. Within 2 days, the team had visited the garage. They cataloged every tool, every creaking cabinet, every detail of the space. Keanu had left specific instructions. Keep it all. Just upgrade the bones. Don't erase the man's story, honor it. The cracked floors were resurfaced, but Henry's original workbench was restored, not replaced. A new HVAC system was installed, yet the old wrench and roll neon sign stayed just above the door, now rewired and glowing proudly for the first time in years. By the end of the week, Keanu stood in the middle of the shop, hands in his jacket pockets, looking around like a kid seeing a dream come to life. It wasn't flashy. It wasn't corporate. It felt honest. 2 weeks passed. The hospital released Henry with a cautious warning, take it easy. No heavy lifting. And no more late nights crawling under engines. He nodded at the doctors, but his heart was restless. All he could think about was the garage. When his granddaughter picked him up, she handed him an envelope with familiar handwriting. You got mail, she said, smiling. Guy in a black hoodie dropped it off. Didn't leave a name. Henry's hands trembled slightly as he opened the envelope. The keys clinked into his palm first. Then he read the note, just 5 lines, simple and sincere. His chest tightened. The next morning, he stood in front of his garage, staring at it like it was a memory made new. The outside still had its charm, the weathered wood, the familiar squeak of the old sign in the wind. But something was different. He unlocked the door. It swung open easily, no more catching on the bottom edge like it used to. And there it was. The same garage, but reborn. The tools were perfectly arranged. The lights, bright but warm. A new coat of paint gave the walls life, while his old photos of cars, of customers, of his younger self, had been framed and hung with care. On the wall was a plaque that hadn't been there before. Simple, engraved on dark oak. Carter's garage, built on honor. Restored with gratitude. Henry stood in the doorway, breath caught somewhere between disbelief and emotion. "Damn it, Keanu," he muttered, shaking his head and smiling. "You actually did it." He stepped inside. And just like that, the garage lived again. Not just as a shop, but as a symbol of something deeper. Henry had planned to quietly reopen the shop. No fanfare. Just work, like always. But small towns don't keep quiet for long, especially when something special is happening. It started with Eddie, the mailman. He dropped off a package, took one look around the freshly restored shop, and whistled low. "Looks like a miracle happened in here," he muttered. By noon, 3 more old customers had stopped by. Not to drop off cars, but just to see. To ask, "You back for good, Henry?" Henry nodded slowly. "Looks like it." And when someone asked how it all came together, he just said, "Had a little help." But help has a way of leaving fingerprints. A sharp-eyed teen spotted the brand of lighting used, same kind installed in a celebrity-owned music studio in LA. A customer noticed the espresso machine in the corner. This the same one they use at Reeves Roastery in West Hollywood? Then someone put 2 and 2 together. The rumor mill lit up. Did Keanu Reeves fix up Carter's garage? Henry didn't confirm it. He didn't have to. That wasn't the point. But something beautiful happened. People didn't just come to get their cars fixed. They came to be part of something. To support a man who never asked for a handout. A man who had always shown up, even when his hands hurt and his chest ached, and the world moved on without him. Within days, the shop had a line of customers, old friends, new faces, young mechanics who wanted to learn. And Keanu? He kept his distance. He never once posted about it. Never did an interview. Never took credit. The garage was busier than it had been in years. Henry Carter, now something of a local legend, worked slower, but smarter. He didn't crawl under cars much anymore. Instead, he taught. And people listened. Young men and women from the neighborhood came by after school or between shifts, curious about engines, tools, grease, and grit. But more than that, they came for Henry's stories. How do you know when a car's going to stall without looking? What's the trick with a '68 Camaro's carburetor? How do you stay this calm when everything's broken? Henry would grin. You don't fix the car. You listen to it. Every machine's got its own voice. Just like people. One afternoon, he called over a kid named Luis, a 19-year-old who'd been hanging around for weeks, asking questions and sweeping the floors even when no one asked him to. "You ever rebuilt a carb from scratch?" Henry asked. Luis blinked. "No, sir. But I watched you do it twice." Henry handed him a wrench and stepped aside. "Good. Now I'll watch you." And just like that, the torch began to pass. Later that evening, Henry sat alone in the garage as the sun dipped low behind the rooftops. He opened a small wooden box he kept beneath his bench. Inside, nestled in black velvet, were the original keys to the garage. Faded. A little rusty. He smiled, then pulled out another envelope. The same one Keanu had left him. He reread the words for the 100th time. "Come back when you're ready. The lights will be on." But now, it was his turn to write. He took out a blank card and scribbled down a new note, this time addressed to Luis. "This place was built by hands, saved by kindness. Now it's yours to carry forward. You'll know what to do." It was early on a Sunday morning, just after sunrise. The streets were still sleepy, the air cool and still. A black motorcycle rolled up to Carter's garage, engine humming low like a whisper. The rider wore a plain helmet, black jeans, and a weathered leather jacket. Nothing flashy, nothing loud. It was Keanu. He hadn't called. He hadn't announced anything. He just came. The garage door was already open. Inside, a young man was beneath the hood of a beat-up Mustang, humming quietly to himself, a streak of grease across his forehead. A few feet away, 2 teens were sorting spark plugs. The radio played an old blues tune low in the background. The place felt alive. Keanu parked the bike and walked in slowly, soaking it all in. The walls were clean, but filled with photos, new ones. Henry standing with kids. A ribbon cutting. Smiling customers with their cars. A framed copy of that wooden plaque still hung over the workbench. Carter's garage, built on honor. Restored with gratitude. From a corner, Luis noticed him. He froze, then stood upright, wiping his hands on his jeans. "You're him, aren't you?" he asked, voice calm but reverent. Keanu smiled faintly. "Depends. Who do you think I am?" Luis grinned. "The guy who didn't want to thank you, but got one anyway." They shook hands. Keanu's grip was gentle but firm. Luis nodded toward the back room. "Henry's inside. He's got something for you." Keanu stepped into the small office, the familiar scent of old paper, leather, and oil filling the air. Henry sat in a recliner, reading a car magazine, glasses perched low on his nose. He looked up and grinned wide. "Took you long enough." Keanu chuckled. "Didn't want to steal your spotlight." Henry sat up and reached into a drawer, pulling out the original garage keys, the faded, rusted set. "These belong to the past," he said, placing them in Keanu's hand. "Thought you should have them. Not because I'm leaving, but because none of this would have happened without you." Keanu looked down at the keys. They were heavy, not in weight, but in meaning. He nodded quietly. "You gave me something too, Henry. You reminded me why this kind of work, the real kind, matters." The two men sat in silence for a moment. No cameras, no applause, just mutual respect. Then Henry said, "You should stay. Luis makes a damn good coffee." The garage buzzed with life. A mother waited in a folding chair as her son's Civic got new brake pads. A retired teacher dropped off her station wagon and stayed just to chat. Neighborhood kids rode their bikes past the open bay doors, waving as they passed. Inside, Carter's garage had become more than a repair shop. It was a gathering place, a school, a second home. Keanu returned every now and then, not as a celebrity, but as part of the story. Sometimes to sip coffee in the corner and smile as Luis taught a group of teens how to change oil. Other times, he picked up a broom, swept the floor, or helped patch up a leaking radiator. No one made a big deal about it, because the garage wasn't about him. It was about what he saw in someone else, what he believed could be saved, rebuilt, and shared. Henry, now retired from the daily grind, still came in a few mornings a week. He mostly gave advice, cracked jokes, and made sure the jukebox still worked. And when people asked about the fancy Hollywood guy who helped him out, Henry would just smirk and say he wasn't trying to be a hero. He was just being human. The plaque stayed up. So did a photo near the register, one of Henry and Keanu, both holding mugs, both laughing mid-sentence, both wearing matching grease-stained flannel shirts. And every time a young mechanic picked up a wrench for the first time, or a nervous customer walked in with a car that wouldn't start,